Now on to part 2, the particle emitter. The particle emitter is an animated object that is repeated over and over again. So essentially we can take a picture, we can take a shape, we can take text, you can literally take anything, and the particle emitter will repeat that object over and over throughout the timeline. You'll see what I mean here in just a second. This is one of those things that's really simple to create, and it's a little bit more difficult to kind of come up with a creative use of the particle emitter. I'm just going to do a shape, so I'm going to grab the tool. I'm going to hold the shift key so that I get a nice circle there. I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut D to bring up the dashboard. And one thing I'm going to make sure is I have the object selected that I want to manipulate. So when I hit D right away there, I was presented with the circle tool options. So I want to make sure I click on the actual circle itself, which will let me modify that. I'm going to pick a new color for this. I'm feeling sort of a bluish color. I'm going to give it an outline actually too, just so you can see a little bit more clearly. Make that outline a little bit wider. Just to show you how simple the emitter is, I'm going to hit the letter E, and well, nothing happened. But you see in the timeline, emitter, here, circle, and then the original circle that I drew is actually gone. So this emitter has taken its place. We'll see what happens when I push the space bar. So now you see what it means to emit. So that particle being the circle that I drew is just repeating over and over again. So you could already start to see some creative uses here. This could be bubbles. This could be sort of the start of like a digital screensaver that you might put in the background. The sky's the limit really on what you can do here. Just like before, we can bring up some of the more simple and basic controls by hitting the letter D. So as I select the emitter, and I see a few simple controls. Birth rate, that's how many of those circles are going to come out per second. 30, or do I want a lot more, or do I want a lot less? I want it to sort of bounce out a little bit more slowly. How long should they be alive? That's the life. 5 seconds? Or do you want them to stay on the screen for longer? Or do you want them on for less? The scale goes back to that original circle. Do I want a circle that's exactly like that? Or do I want one that's bigger? Or do I want one that's smaller? The emission range, that's how they're going to come right out of this circle here. So I could easily make them go across the screen left to right. I could click on that, spin them around the other way. I can make them come out of one corner. So you get the idea. Those are some of the basic controls you can do with an emitter. Well, there's more advanced controls, and you're going to find those, just like anything in motion, you're going to find those in the inspector. So when I click on the inspector in the upper left hand corner, I see there's quite a few more controls. We're not going to get into too many of these, but you could change the randomness of the birth rate, how fast they come out. You could change the randomness of how long they stay on screen, or the speed, or the angle. So you see all of these changes you can make. Changing the opacity over life will let me fade these objects in and out. So right now, they just kind of pop onto the screen, and then when they leave, they just pop out of the screen like that. So I'm going to stop that, and I'm going to change the opacity over life. And I do that by option clicking to add a new little color flag up here. So I want to click that first color flag, and then I'm going to take the opacity slider, drag it down all the way, and I'm going to flip-flop that and grab the last color flag, take the opacity slider, pull it down all the way. And so you could adjust those, and that would be the fade over the life of this object. This is going to fade it in over the life of the object. So let's watch that. So now you see them start to fade in. Another thing I might like to change is the order that they show up. Sometimes I might want them to sort of come towards the screen. So I want the older ones to be underneath those. You can see that they start to blend out. Another thing I might like to change is the color mode. I could pick a new color, or I could do this one. This is one of my favorites, called color over life. So here's the color mode, and it's going to pick this color over life. So I could option click to put a color flag down here. Click this option. I can pick some crazy colors. So you notice how it's kind of blending these colors together. Option click and put another one down there. And you see it's picking randomly from colors across this bar. So that's the emitter at a glance, and the trick will be doing something creative with it that makes it look sharp and not like a gimmick. Speaking of gimmicks,